Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. I spend my mornings in the 19th century, and this morning was no exception. I spent my time researching the officer pictured here, Charles S. Wainwright, who started the war as major of the 1st New York Light Artillery and went on to be chief of artillery for the 1st and 5th Corps of the Army of the Potomac, ended the war as a brevet brigadier general, a distinguished record. And so learned a lot this morning. This afternoon, I attended a book signing at the Lomas Center and Museum in Gettysburg. And as you walk into the museum, you come face to face with this gun here. This is a very unique weapon for a couple of reasons. It's the 3-inch Ordnance Rifle that was very popular, a durable and reliable gun used throughout the Civil War years. This particular gun, the one you're looking at right now, serial number 1. And guess what? It was part of a battery in the 1st New York Light Artillery, Wainwright's regiment. And it was captured at Gettysburg. I was stunned when I saw this cannon. I had no idea that it was in the museum. I had just read about the cannon in the morning, about gun number 1. So I want to share the passage from Wainwright's diary where he talks about the capture, where he references the capture. And I'm going to pick up the passage from the diary entry because it's rather long. I'll skip over the first part where he talks about seeing the body of General John Reynolds being taken out early in the morning of the first day, he and his artillerists going in and then being forced back. So I'm going to pick up his diary entry as they are leaving the scene of the early part of the fighting, as the Confederates are advancing and overwhelming their position. He says, quote, "I then at once ordered all to limber up and move at a walk towards the town." That's Gettysburg, of course. "I would not allow them to trot for fear of creating a panic among the infantry with which the road was now crowded. But I had very little hope of getting them all off, for the Rebs were close upon us, so near that a big fellow had planted the colors of his regiment on a pile of rails within 50 yards of the muzzles of the guns at the moment we received the order to limber up. As I sat on the hill watching my pieces file past and cautioning each one not to trot, there was not a doubt in my mind but that I should go to Richmond." That, of course, is his way of saying that I expect to be captured, or I expected to be captured. "Each minute I expected to hear the order to surrender, for our infantry had all gone from around me, and there was nothing to stop the advancing line. So here he is on the hill watching his guns move away and the Confederates right on their heels, no Union infantry around them." He continues, "Just as the last of Stewart's caissons were coming into the road, fortunately the other batteries did not have their caissons with them, a number of the enemy skirmishers sweeping around the south side of the college buildings opened fire across the road at about 50 yards distance. Our infantry did not return the fire, so there seemed no chance but that they would kill all my horses. Perhaps, though, it was as well for me that our infantry, instead of making fight, took at once and in a body cleared the road, and I shouted, 'Trot, gallop,' as loud as I could. It did not take long for the whole 18 pieces and 6 caissons to be in full gallop down the road, which, being wide, allowed them to go 3 abreast. As I saw the head carriages already at the turn of the road just before entering the town, I felt that now all were safe. And my next duty being to look out for a new position for them, I galloped to the front. In order to get by the batteries, I was obliged to climb over the railroad and enter the town by another street. I had hurrahed a little before I was out of the woods. The Rebs pulled off the skirt of my coat. This is his way of saying that they nipped at him and got some of his artillery. He says, the Rebs pulled off the skirt of my coat. That is, after I left the road, they got some pieces on the crest we had just left and fired into the tail of our column, smashing up 3 of Stewart's caissons. The rascals south of the road, too, killed off Wheeler of Lieutenant Wilbur's last piece, and when he had just got him cut out and was starting again, they shot down 3 more horses, his own horse, and one of the drivers. So the gun was abandoned. I was terribly grieved when I heard of it, for I had begun to look upon our getting off from that place as quite a feat, and I wished that it could have been without the loss of a gun. The more I think of it, the more I wonder that we got off at all. Our front fire must have shaken the rebel lines badly, or they would have been upon us. The gun lost was number 1, the first 3-inch gun accepted by the Ordnance Department. So there you have Charles Wainwright talking about the gun, the capture of gun number 1, and there again is that picture. I want to continue to give you a little bit more information about what happened to Wainwright. After the loss of the gun on the first day, his artillery and Wainwright himself are back in action on July 2nd, commanding all the guns on the eastern side of Cemetery Hill. His batteries were notable that day around twilight for repulsing an attack by the Louisiana Tigers. The next day, the third and last day of the battle, Wainwright and his artillerists were at it again with their Confederate counterparts just before Pickett's charge. As I mentioned, Wainwright goes on to become an artillery chief at that time at Gettysburg. He was chief of the First Corps of Artillery for the Army of the Potomac. In August of 1864, now a brevet brigadier general, he was placed in command of the Fifth Corps and did good work with that artillery section, including the Battle of North Anna, where his guns broke up a Confederate attack. Wainwright survived it all and lived until 1907. Now, you may be wondering what happened to gun number 1. Well, a little more than a little less than a year later, May 12th, 1864, the Union recaptured it at the Battle of Spotsylvania during the intense fighting in the Mule Shoe Salient. According to the 2005 book, Silent Sentinels, a reference guide to the artillery at Gettysburg, author George Newton says, really not sure exactly which Confederate battery received gun number 1 after its capture at Gettysburg, but because of its recapture at the Mule Shoe Salient at Spotsylvania and the artillery units involved, Newton believes it's one of 3 batteries, 2 of the batteries in Virginia. That's Captain William A. Tanner's Courtney Artillery or Captain Charles William Fry's Orange Artillery. The third possibility is from Alabama. That's Captain William J. Reese's Jeff Davis Artillery. So one of those 3 artillery pieces, according to Newton, was the recipient of gun number 1. And after that, after its recapture, it made its way to the supply depot of the Army, of the U.S. Army, and made a circuitous route, eventually finding a home in the Lomas Museum in Gettysburg. So next time you are in Gettysburg, the museum is right off the main drag going into the circle at Gettysburg, So go check it out. I'll include a link to their websites at the bottom of this video. So take care. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.